Okay, so we currently are on Nun Vav Amud Aleph, which is 56a. However, I'm going to start from Nun Hey Amud Aleph, believe it or not. Nun Hey Amud Beis is extremely small. I want to go back to Nun Hey Amud Aleph, to the two dots on bottom of 55a. And I'll do it very quickly just to recap because we stopped in the middle of something and it's quite complicated. So let's start. Says the Gemara. Maskal Minah. So I'm just going to talk a little quicker because it's just a sort of a recap. Maskal Minah. So the Mishnah stated that if this Mishnah brought down the original Mishnah on Nundalid way back when started talking about certain types of tumas that a Nazir would have to become tameh. He would have to shave his head, and by therefore he would have to reset the clock of Naziros and start from day one. The second Mishnah, the Mishnah we're quoting right now, brought down other cases of tumah that a Nazir does not have to shave his head, and by therefore he does not have to go ahead and reset the clock. What happens? Does it pause, or could you even count the days of tumah in the days of including the days of Nazirus? Now, so Amar Rav Chisda. So Rav Chisda says, Lo yishna el b'ziris mu'etes. This Mishnah that said that you have to pause it, Mishnah says to pause. The question is the Mishnah talking about, Rav Chisda says, when you pause it, not to reset, just to pause, we're talking about a small Nazirus. It's a 30-day Nazirus. Nazirus Meruba, but a 100-day Nazirus. So someone accepts upon himself to be Nazir for 100 days. Mislaknam Yisalaklam. What happens is in that case, the days of Nazirus, the days of the Tumah, or the case of, we're going to talk Tzaras for the most part, the days of as a Mitzaira, hold on, in the case of the Mishnah, this was going on, the Mishnah said that this is specifically going on it's going on all the cases. Yeah, okay. That all the cases mentioned in the Mishnah, if it's a 100-day Nazirus, could be included, the days of Tumah could be wrapped in and included in the days of Nazirus. Rav Shravia. So Shravia asked the question, our Mishnah says that you start immediately. Doesn't overrule the first one. You don't lose. You don't have to reset the clock. What's this Mishnah talking about? Now, if you're going to say that you pause it and you don't have to reset the clock, well, if it's a 30-day Nazirus, you have a big problem. Because in the case of Mitzaira, whether you like it or not, has to shave his head because due to Mitzaira issues, nothing to do with Nazir. Mitzaira has to shave his head twice. Now, the halach is for a Nazir, before the Nazir shaves his head, before the Nazir shaves his head as being a Nazir, at the end of his Nazirus, he needs 30 days growth. So if 10, let's say, for example, if one accepts upon himself a 30-day Nazirus, he waits 10 days, he becomes a Mitzaira, and let's say it's a 2-week process to gab the Mitzaira, and he comes at the end and he continues from day 11 after he's done with his Mitzaira process, well, you have a problem. When you get to day 30 of a Nazir, you only have a 20 days growth. So the Mishnah can't mean to say that on a 30-day Nazirus, after being a Mitzaira, he pauses. It's not going to work because there are times when he has to wait 30 days anyway. Mishnah can't be talking about that. So it must be top of Nun Hey Amud Beis 55b. Allah b'Naziris Meruba. Must be the Mishnah saying when it pauses, that's going to be a 100-day Nazirus. Must be a 30-day. That has to be the case of Mitzaira. So every single case in the Mishnah must be that a 30-day Nazirus. It uproots it and you have to reset the clock and go back from day one after you become pure. The Ketani Maskal Minah Miyad. Fine. So that's the question of Chisda. Chisda claims that a 30-day Nazirus is paused. 100-day Nazirus, it's wrapped, and you could count the days of Tumah for the 100 days. We bring proof the Mishnah can't be so. So that's the question of Chisda. So we say, he asked the question, he answered it. The case is it's a 50-day Nazirus. This is the case of the Mishnah, and even though it's still going to be paused, how the Yosef Asr Maslide Be Saras. Let's say he waited 20 days, so he accepted upon himself a 50-day Nazirus. 20 days in, he gets Saras. Then he has to wait for the entire trust and he has to shave his head. Now he's finally pure. Now he can wait another 30 days. The Nazir Daha Islay Gidosar, because he has enough of the 30 days in order to go ahead and shave his head. The point is you're right. According to Rav Chisda has to admit it's true. On a 30-day Nazirus, there's a technicality, you have to go back from day one. Not because the Tumah resets it, because the shaving of the head is you need 30 days worth of a haircut. So therefore, it's not that it could be the Mishnah's, it could very well be the Mishnah's talking, but meaning Rav Chisda is right technically that if you're, so at the end of the day, coming back to this, according to Rav Chisda, if you're able to include the days of Tumah, of this type of Tumah, of the Mishnah, into the days of Nazirus, then you do it. If there's a technicality that you need 30 days growth, then you have to wait 30 days. It's not because of you cannot count the days of Tumah in the Nazirus. And it's not that the days of Tumah reset the clock of Nazirus. It's just a technicality. For this type of lesser Tumah, you really could count it, but we really could count it, but we have to pause it if you don't have a choice. In the case of 15 Nazirs, you have to pause it. In the case of a 30-day Nazirs, you have no choice but to start from day one. Okay, now we are on, we're back on 55b, Nun Hey Amud Beis, and we are 2 lines from the bottom. So Meisiv Rabbi Boruch. We have another question of Chisda. Now remember, Chisda says that on a 30-day Naziris it's paused, and on a 100-day Naziris, it will be, the days in Naziris could be included in being a Mitzayra. And this is a little complicated, so we have to keep cheshbon. So Rabbi Boruch asked, we have another question from Rabbi Boruch on Rav Chisda. Nazir sheyatami misafik. So this is an interesting case. You have a Nazir, and the poor guy runs into 2 doubts at the same time. We're not sure whether he's tummy mace. We're not sure if he touched a dead body, and also we're not sure if he's a Mitzayra. Now we're going to have to try to include. When he's going to have a Mitzayra needs 2 haircuts. The problem is if it's a doubt, you can't take a haircut because he might be a Nazir. So we're going to see a minute how we get around it. I see someone just joined. Good morning, Eric. We are on the bottom of Nun Hey Amud Beis. We're on 55b. About to turn back on to 56. We just went a little back from yesterday. So that's the problem. Now that's the case. So how does this Nazir, the poor guy who's now in a doubt if he's a tumah to dead body, he's doubt if he's a Mitzayra, how does he get out of it? So you have to do. Now, in a case of a regular 30-day Nazirus, it'll take 60 days to get out, to be able to eat kachim, to become pure. And it'll also take, and then it'll take 120 days to get out of the Nazirus. Okay, now I'll just explain this as follows. So, as I said, that we're doubt he's Mitzayra, he's a doubt he's tummy to a dead body. Mitzayra needs 2 haircut, you have to have your haircut twice. And if you're really tummy mace, then you have to have your haircut before you could go back to Nazir. So we learned in the previous Mishnah on whatever it is, Mem Tes, I think, that a Mitzayra who's has contact with the full body and has a full status of Tumah, he has no choice but to go ahead and shave his head. Now, the issue is as follows: so let's get this. So let's say he has to wait 30 days. Now he has to wait 30 days for sure. He can't shave his head to get out of Mitzayra or to get out of Tumas Mace in the first 30 days. Because for all we know, it's a doubt. Remember, it's a doubt he's a Mitzayra. It's a doubt that he's also a Tumas Mace, but he might not be any of it. It might be a real Nazir. So he cannot shave his head the first 30 days because you're shaving head while he's a Nazir on the side on the point on the view that nothing really happened. So that's why the first 30 days you can't do anything. He has to pretend he's another first 30 days. Fine. Now he can shave his head. Now this could be the first shaving of Tumah. Sorry, this could be the first shaving of Mitzayra or the shaving for Tumah. But now now he needs a second shaving to get out of being a Mitzayra. He has to shave his head twice. Now, if he wasn't a Mitzayra, but he was a Tumas Mace, well, he just shaved his head for Tumas Mace, and now he can't shave his head for the next 30 days because he's completing his days of Nazirus, because on the side he didn't have Mitzayra. So when could he go ahead and shave his head the second time for Mitzayra? After 60 days, right? Okay, so now at this point, he for sure, after this point, he got out of his Tumah. But on the side that he's both the Mitzayra and Tumas Mace, he needs another head shaving for the Tumas Mace. Now he waited the time period of Tumas Mace, but he still needs his head shaven before restarting and being a Nazir. But maybe he was only Mitzayra and not Tumas Mace, and his Mitzayra, his days of counting as Nazir can only start after two haircuts, which was on day 60. So now he has to wait another, and now he's really Nazir, but maybe he's also Tumas Mace and Mitzayra, and he needs another head shaving for Tumas Mace. But that only can happen after 90 days, and then finally after 90 days he has all 3 haircuts on the side that he was all 3. On the side that he was a Mitzayra and Tumas Mace, he can wait another 30 days to complete his Nazirs. That's the cheshbon. Okay, now The Tanya Allah were two. That's how we have to get. We didn't get to the question yet. That's how we get to this 60 and 120. Now, again, we're on 56a, 2 lines down. The Tanya Allah what's this case? So when you say you have to wait 60 and 160 days to get it to be tame, to tahar, in order to touch kachim, and 120 days to finally get out of your nazirus, that's only by nazirus muetas. That's only by a nazirus of 30 days. Avo, nazirus bas shana, but on nazirus of a year. So let's say he accepts upon himself to be a nazir for 1 year. Times everything by, right? You take a year. So it'll take, just like we said, a 30 nazirus takes 60 days to eat kachim. A 1 year nazirus will take 2 years to eat kachim. Just like we said, a 30 nazirus will take 120 days to go ahead and be out of nazirus totally. So a 1 year nazirus times that by 4 will come after 4 years. Now, fine. Now, which is the same cheshbon. There's no reason to go through the calculations. The 1 year is like the 30 days. The 2 years is like the 60 days. The 90, right? And the 3 years is like the 90 days. And the 120 days is like the 4 years. Now, now, if you think like Rav Chisda, meaning if you hold that Rav Chisda holds that the days of Mitzaira could be counted in the days of Nazirus, if that's true, it should end up happening that it should be it should be 3 years and 30 days. It shouldn't be 4 years to get out of Nazirus. It should be 3 years and 30 days. Okay, now let's explain this. Why is that so? So let's see if I got this right. So the reason is that if it's the first year, so first of all, again, he accepted upon himself Nazirus for a year. He went ahead and we're doubtful if he's Tamei Meis, and we're also doubtful if he was a Mitzaira. So now he might not be either any of them. So you can't cut his hair to get out of either Tumah, because he might be a real Nazir. You got to wait 1 year. At the end of the first year, you could shave his head. This could take care of the Tumah issue, Tumah Meis issue. But if he's a Mitzaira, I'll take care of the Mitzaira first, or the first shaving of Mitzaira. Then you got to wait another year, because maybe he was a Tumah Meis and not a Mitzaira, and I can't shave his head because he's completing his days of Nazirus. But he still needs to have another shaving of Mitzaira. But that's got to wait until the second year. That's to get to the second year. Now this is where it kicks in. If Rav Chisda is right that the days of Nazirus is counted in as a Mitzaira, then it should be on the side that he's a Mitzaira, he got out of his Mitzaira. On the side that he's a Mitzaira, and not Tumas, and on the side that he's a Mitzaira and not Tumas Meis, well, all he needs to get out of Nazirus now is 30 days. Because you told, according to Chesed, the days of Mitzaira count in as the Nazirus. He just waited 2 years. So he completed his days of Nazirus. He just has to wait 30 days in order to have his head shaven. Because you need 30 days worth of growth. So that he should wait only 30 days, get his head shaven, right? Now, that would take care of the issue of Nazirus as a Mitzaira. Now, on the side that he's the Mitzaira and Tumas Meis, then the days of Mitzaira don't help, because Tumah resets the clock after you shave your head, after you're fully pure. So in that case, then he has to wait the extra 30 days, get a head shaven. The head shaven after 30 days will take care of the Tumas Meis, and he has to wait another year for 3 years and 30 days. So if this is correct, all you need is 3 years and 30 days. Yeah? Anyone? Is that good? You can raise your hand if it's so. Yeah, should I say it one more time? The point is like this: if it's true according to, all you have to know is to follow the thinking of the Gemara is, according to Chisda, if the days of Nazirus are included in being a Mitzaira, you shouldn't have to wait 4 years. You should just wait 3 years and 30 days max. That's the question of Chisda. Now, now that we have another question of Chisda, and I think this price is going to go for a while. So let's go with it. This idea is only the days of Tumah that are the days of only the days of Tumah for a dead body are not completed, are not counted at all, meaning it resets the clock.
Rabbi, page position again, please.
Oh, sure. We're on 56a, and we are exactly, the first word on the line is Tumah. So ainly you made Tumah. So this, so only the days of Tumah are not counted as being counted in the days of Naziris. Where do we know that the days of a Mitzaira are counted? Now there's several. Let's point out there's several. We're going to go through several parts of Mitzaira. So Yomei Chalutai is the day when he's a confirmed Mitzaira and he's actually waiting to become Tahar. Then there's Yomei Sikurai, which are the days of after he becomes tahar. After finally the Mitzayra leaves him, he has to wait 7 days to bring the carbon and get his haircut. That's after the days of Mitzayra. Then before the days of Mitzayra are confirmed, there's the days when he's in solitude, and they're trying to figure out, is he Mitzayra or not? And we're going to get that later. Those are the 3 periods of Mitzayra. So everyone agrees that so it seems like everyone agrees that so now the Gemara's question as follows: Who said at all that the days of really question on the Mishnah? Who said the days of Mitzayra is even paused? Maybe it resets the clock, resets the count like by a dead body. So it should be a kal v'chomer. It's logical. It may tumah megaleach or maybe carbon. For days of tumah, you have to shave your head and bring a carbon. Maybe carbon. Also, the days a Mitzayra who's confirmed Mitzayra and has to sit there outside the camp, he also has to bring a carbon. He also has to shave his head. Just like the days of Tumah, don't help him, are not included in the count of being a Mitzayra. Also, the days of Tzaras also are not counted in the minyan. So we want to say from here that there should be no difference between a Nazir Tameh and a Mitzayra, and most of them should not have any count towards being a Mitzayra, towards the days of Nazirus. Now that we say no, like if you say that as being a Tumas Meis, we cannot count those days as being a Nazir, because they go ahead and not only do they deposit, they're not counted, they totally override the first days, and you have to reset the count and start from day 1 after you come tar from a dead body. Will you say when he's a Nazir, which they don't go ahead and overrule the first days? So you want to compare the days of Mitzayra. You want to learn the halacha from Tumah, where it totally goes ahead and overrules the days of Tumah. And meaning, I'll repeat this. We want to say that the days of Tumah overrule usually and reset the clock. And we want to say, at least let's say the days of Tumah are not counted in, right? At least pauses. I really know it does more than that, but at least it doesn't count. And now let's compare it to Mitzayra, which has the same scenario of shaving the head and a carbon. So it shouldn't be counted. It for sure should not be counted. At least shouldn't be counted. It should at least be paused. And that's what Chisda claims that it's not paused. It's counted. We could roll with it the days of Nazirus. Every day of Mitzayra could count towards days of Nazirus. And that is the obvious. Gemara answers back. Well, obviously, you can't go learn Mitzayra from Tumas Meis, because Tumas Meis overrides the days, and you reset the clock, and you have to start the calendar 30-day count all over again. How can you apply it to the Mitzayra? At least the Mishnah for sure says at least it pauses it. So that's not a good kavachimer, because we see that Mitzayra is really weaker than Tumas Meis, so you can't derive from there. Now, Amarti kavachimer. The Gemara says, you know what? I'll tell you. I'll make it into a kavachimer. Uman Nazir bekever, just like we say that someone accepts upon himself a Nazir being in the cemetery. This guy's in the cemetery, says, I want to be a Nazir. Sheshari rolis galech nazirus. That even though it's true that now we don't shave his head, it's as if the Nazirus never really started. So the halach is that if the Nazir becomes tamei, he's supposed to shave his head, and then he has to reset the clock and start counting 30 days. But if someone accepts upon himself a Nazir while he's in the actual cemetery, you don't have to cut his head. He has to become tahar. He has to complete his days of Nazirus, but we never have to cut his hair. In Olim Minyan, and the days, and now obviously the days of Tumah are not counted at all in the days of Nazirus. Mechilutai. So when it comes to Tzarash, ein shari roilis galech Nazirus, that when let's say you have a Nazir and he becomes a Mitzayra right away, and we shave his head, so since you shave his head, you need an extra 30 days, like Kol Shekain. It's sure should be counted together with Nazirus. Meaning we have another way to derive the halacha to apply the halacha of Tumah to the halacha of Tzras, that one does not, that we pause it and we don't count it from very similar, because they're very similar. And that we say, very good. I only have the days of being a Nazir. From where do I know the days of the counting? Meaning once he becomes tar, and once the Tras leaves him and he has to count 7 days, how do I know that is also going to go ahead and it should not count in the days of it should not count in the days of Nazirus. Again, we say it's going to be kavachimer. Again, this is all quoting a brisa this entire time. Now we turn to the top of we're on the top of Nun Vav Amid Beis 56b, right? We turn to the top. Just like you say, the day of being we're going back. Now we're going on 7 days after he's done with being a Mitzayra. He has to wait 7 days. What about that? How do we know that it shouldn't count? The days of the Mitzayra should not count as being a Nazir. Just like the days of being a Nazir requires being to get a shave. Okay, sorry, Sras, right? One is Mechlutai. Mechlutai is when he's actually sitting there as a Mitzayra, not the 7 days afterwards. First we wanted to learn the days of Tumah when you sit there outside the camp from the dead body. Now we're learning the days of counting after being done with, after Tzras leaves you from the days of Mitzayra Tzras itself. Afmei Sifroi, just like the days of Chilutai, just the days of being a confirmed Tzras requires a head shave. Sifroi, also the days of counting requires to be shaven. Now, and just like the days of being set aside as being a Mitzayra don't count and being for the days of Naziros, Afmei Sifroi, also the days of counting, meaning the days of the 7 days afterwards, are not counted in being for a Nazir. Now, once we're going so far that the days of counting after the Tzras leaves him are not going to be included, so let's go in the very beginning. When you first go to the Kayin and the Kayin is not sure if it's Tzras or not, you're set aside and you have to wait the 7 days. And that should also not count. A Mitzayra, a confirmed Mitzayra, I mean, after the Kayin says you're Tameh, he is going to be Mitami, make things impure by lying in them or sitting on them. Also, Mitzayra was unconfirmed and waiting for the Kayin's report. He too, as Mitama Mishkav Umaysa, by sitting or carrying. But therefore, if you learn from the days when he's confirmed Mitzayra that don't count. Now, if you say I say no such case. If you say the days of a confirmed Nazir that they don't count to being, we know that a Nazir himself should not. As we kept on repeating this, that a Nazir, the days don't count as for a Nazir. It's the days of Mitzayra of a confirmed Mitzayra sitting outside the camp as a in Tumas Tzras does not count as for a Nazir. That's only because once you're a confirmed Nazir, you have no choice but to go ahead and you have to have your head shaven. You've got Mitzayra, sorry. And once you become Mitzayra, you have to have it shaven, and you've gone beyond the point of no return because you are confirmed Mitzayra. So that's why it doesn't count. Timer may have scary, but if you're sitting there waiting for the report from the Kain, if you are a Nazir or if you're a Mitzayra or not, it may be Karban. The Kain might come back and say you're not Tameh. So therefore, you go out free. You don't have to haircut. You don't have to bring a Karban. Maybe those days should count as a Nazir. It's not the same level as a real Mitzayra. From here we say confirm Mitzayra, and the 7 days afterwards do not count for the days of Mitzayra. However, Zava, this is the Mishnah already, the days of being a Zav or a Zava, that type of Tama, the Haskerai, and a Mitzayra who's waiting for the report, or Mitzayra, or not sure he's a Mitzayra, a person waiting to be told he is a Mitzayra, this will count for Nazirus. So now we finished the Brisa. Now we didn't get to the question yet.
If he's confirmed, okay.
Yeah.
So he's sitting and waiting for the Kohen to decide.
Yeah.
And then he's confirmed, and then he's Mitzura. So then he has to shave after that 7 days.
Yeah.
But so that doesn't count in the count.
That's what we want to say.
Oh,
we want to say that Mitzayra, and from the point you become a confirmed Mitzayra to the point where it's gone, and afterwards to the point where you have to shave your head and bring a Karban, the entire time should not count.
Okay.
That's what we want to say. Well, we want to propose that. But now that's the Brisa. That's the end of the Brisa. So on this, now we have our question of Chista. So Katan, now we are about, if anyone that lost the place, we are on 56b. We are about 5 lines up from the first Mishnah. Last one is Katani. So Katani Mehas. So now that we said this, since we learned this, now we have a question. Now, do you want to say that just like in the days of as being tummy mace, you're tummy to a dead body, that it does go ahead and it resets the calendar and you have to count the 30 days again? So should we not say the same thing by should we not say the same thing by Taras? So okay, we don't have a. I mean, okay. So his question is like this: that if we're so certain that we want to learn it from Taras, should we not go ahead and say, hold on. Yeah. Okay. So we want to say this. Which case? So we want. So we're quoting the brisa. This okay. We're quoting the brisa. How could you go ahead? Then if you remember, go back to the beginning of the brisa. The brisa wanted to propose that we should learn from Tumas Meis to Mitzaira. Just like Tumas Meis, at least the days don't count. Same thing by Mitzaira. That's what he wanted to say. The Gemara and then the Midrash said these words: how could, if you're going so far, maybe you should go. Maybe you should at least go ahead. Meaning, how could you learn out from Tumas Meis? Tumas Meis goes to the extreme where it stops. Not only does it stop the count, it resets the count. Should we say that? Shouldn't we? So how could you learn from Tumas Meis to Mitzaira? Now that question. That's all we need to know. That question, b'mai, what could this case be going on? If it's going on a 30-day Nazirus, hub in Gidol Sar, this should be you should have to go ahead and regrow your hair. Meaning, of course, you have to, it resets the calendar. You don't have a choice. The Gemara was saying, how can you learn out for Tumas Meis? By Mitzaira, you don't have to reset the calendar and you could pause it. But Tumas Meis, you do have to reset the calendar. Now, if this is talking about a 30-day Mitzaira, the whole thing doesn't apply because Mitzaira, you also have to reset the clock because you don't have a choice but to wait for 30 days. Since you shave your head after being Mitzaira, you don't have a choice but to wait 30 days because you need 30 days growth for a Nazir. So even if it pauses it, doesn't help you. You still have to wait 30 days. Ella blab is just meruba. Must be, when we ask this question, we're saying that perhaps the question was by 100-day Nazirus, maybe it should be that not only does it pause, but also resets the calendar. So we're applying to a 100-day Nazirus. But still the brisa keeps on going and says, no, it doesn't reset it, but it pauses it. So we see from here, Chista is wrong. So according to Chista, 100-day count will not count. 100-day Nazirus definitely will not count for Nazirus. Did I say so? No. 100 Nazirus, the days of Mitzaira will definitely not count for the 100 days and will pause it. That's the answer. At the end of the day, after all this, after that big brisa with the 60 and the 90, 60 and 120, and after this whole brisa back and forth between the several levels of Mitzaira and Tuma, we come out. All you got to know is we don't go like Rav Chista. And if someone takes upon himself 100-day Nazirus, and he becomes a Mitzaira, it pauses it. It will not count for the days of Nazirus, and you need 30 days. So if someone accepts upon himself 100-day Nazirus, if he gets Mitzaira before day 60, good. He doesn't have to reset it. If it's after day 60, he's got to wait extra 30 days after. He's got to wait a full 30 days. Yeah, you're gonna have to you need at least 30 days left after being Mitzaira. Right. So after you hit 70, sorry. After you hit 70, you're gonna have issues and you have to reset extra 30 days. So the simple case, you have 100-day Mitzaira, he gets Tzaras on day 50. So you wait the process for Tzaras, and after you bring the carbon and you shave your head for being Mitzaira, you can start counting from day 51 and finish your Nazirs. Okay, we are on the Mishnah. Go a little further. I don't know. Should I wait to leave this for tomorrow? Or should I do this now?
You're already one daf ahead?
We're almost a daf ahead, right?
Yeah.
If we do the next Mishnah, we're gonna get down to we're gonna be a daf ahead. Whatever. Let's start it. We could always let's start it and
sure.
Extra 10 minutes. Yeah, we have to start. Okay. Says the Mishnah. The Mishnah on 56b on Nun Vav Amud Beis. Rabbi Lazar Mishur Rabbi Shua. So Rabbi Lazar said in the name of Rabbi Shua, Kol Tuma min Hameish Shenazim Megalach Aleha. Any Tuma of a dead body from which a Nazir has to go ahead and shave his head, which is not our previous Mishnah. In these cases were in 2 Mishnahs ago. Chayavin Allah al Bias Mikdash. One is also in the same type of Tuma. If this type of tumah will require a Nazir to go ahead and have his head shaven, he will also, and the same type of tumah will be liable for entering the base of Mikdash and the state of tumah. Now, But any tumah from a dead body which won't cause a qadr to shave his head. For example, if you have 1/4 of a cup of powdered bones, that will not cause another to have to shave his head. But if he comes in contact with it, he just has to pause and go through the tower process. But he doesn't have to go ahead and shave his head. There's no chiyuv. You're not going to be liable if one enters the temple in this state. That's what he holds. Okay. Rameir argues, this tumah, this lower type of tumah from impurity from a dead body, which will not require the nazir to shave his head, cannot be any less than the sheretz, than a sheretz, which is any type of an animal which what's the English translation for sheretz? I don't know, whatever, you know what a sheretz is, right? Okay. Any sheretz which goes ahead and because as follows. A nazir, if he touches a sheretz, it doesn't affect him. It does not affect his tumah, right? However, the halach is that if you touch a sheretz, you cannot now go into the base of mikdash. It doesn't make sense that this lower form of contact with a dead body is any less than a sheretz. So for whatever the reason is, we don't know why. For a nazir, it doesn't affect the nazir. A sheretz doesn't affect the nazir. And the lower level of tumah for a dead body also does not make a nazir have to shave his head. But you can't derive from there that this lower level of tumah of a dead body, he could go into the base of mikdash, because it can be no less than a sheretz. And a sheretz, you cannot go into the base of mikdash if you touch it. Therefore, the lower form of tumas mace, which sort of only affects the nazir somewhat, will of course be a problem if you go into the base of mikdash. That is Rav Meir's problem with the saying of Rabbi Lazar in the name of Rabbi Shua. Yeah? Okay. Well, I'll take that back. It could very well be that if a nazir touches a sheretz, he's tamei, but at least doesn't have to shave his head. Let's put it that way. He doesn't have to shave his head. So it cannot. So we have a case of the sheretz, which at least in the nazir world, a sheretz is equal to the lower form of tumah. So, and if that's true in the non-nazir world, in the regular impurity walking to Beis HaMikdash world, if you touch a sheretz, you can't walk to the Beis HaMikdash. So it only makes sense that the lower form of, at least for sure, the lower form of tumah to a dead body of the nazir will also affect you and won't let you walk into the Beis HaMikdash. All right. Now let's start the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Now, interestingly, this Gemara is a, I don't know, we want to say a cheat Gemara. It's not a hard Gemara. It's just we're trying to figure out whose tweet is and whose name was this said. That's Gemara's whole premise. Rabbi Lazar Mishur Rabbi Shua Gemara. Is it true that Rabbi Lazar heard of the name of Rabbi Shua? But Mishur Rabbi Shua Bar Mamo Gemara. He really heard of the name of Rabbi Shua Bar Mamo, because the Rashi explains that whenever the Mishnah just says Rabbi Shua, it's Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. Now, but now we're arguing why is he saying the name Rabbi Shua ben Chananya? It really should be the name of Rabbi Shua ben Mamo. He's saying in the name of the wrong person. The Tanya, because how do we know it's Rabbi Shua ben Mamo? We learned as follows: Rabbi Eliezer keshalachti la'ardaskia. When I went to Ardaskia, Matzasi es Rabbi Shua ben Peser Roish Shahayo Yeshiv Dan. I found Rabbi Shua ben Peser Roish. He was sitting there and he was learning with the Rabbi Meir ba'alacha in front of Rabbi Meir in halacha. So they're just sitting and discussing words of halacha between the two of them. And this is what they were saying, right? Any tumah from a dead body that a nazir has to go in and shave himself with, he is obligated also if he walks into the base of mikdash with the same type of tumah. And any tumah from a dead body which a nazir does not have to shave his head, a lower form of tumas mace, if he goes into the base of mikdash with it, he does not get in trouble. Amar Lai, Rameir said back to Rabbi Shua ben Peser Roish, basically quoting our Mishnah. This can't be less than a sheretz. Okay. Amarti Lai. So Rabbi Lazar is saying the story, right? Rabbi Lazar said, I spoke up. I told him, Klum at the Baki, Rabbi Shua bar Mamo. Or do you know anything? Have you heard of the great sage Rabbi Shua bar Mamo? Amar Li Hain. Rameir said, yes, I've heard of him. Kach Amar Li. So Rabbi Lazar says, this is what I heard from Rabbi Lazar bar Mamo. Rabbi Shua bar Mamo, Mishum Rabbi Shua. I heard from Rabbi Shua bar Mamo in the name of Rabbi Shua. any tuma from a dead body, which another is required to shave, chayim aleha mishum bias mikdash. He is now obligated if he walks into the base of mikdash with that tuma. Anything which a nazir does not have to shave, he does not require to go in. So Rameir is the one who said that can't be less than a sharetz, and Rabbi Lazar himself argued on Rabbi Lazar, brought in the name of Rabbi Yeshua bar Mamel in the name of Rabbi Yeshua that it's not so. So now we go back to the original question: why is the Mishnah quoting Rabbi Lazar the name of Rabbi Yeshua bar Chananya? It should really be in the name of Rabbi Yeshua bar Mamel, because Rabbi Lazar heard it from Yeshua bar Mamel, who heard it from Rabbi Yeshua. So why is it that Rabbi Lazar is jumping Rabbi Yeshua bar Mamel and just quoting the name of Rabbi Yeshua? That's the question. Why did he not attribute it to the one he heard it from? Okay, this is the question, right? He should really hear it, let him say the name of Rabbi Yeshua bar Mamel, because he heard it from him. So Amr Shema, we know we learn from here the following: Kol Shemaisa de'is Amra b'veit klasa, any teaching that has more than 3 in it. Kadme ubasroi amrinan. You have to attribute it to the last one. You have to attribute it to the last one. Kadmoi ubasroi amrinan. We have to attribute to the first and the last. Mitzvah amrinan. But we never have to mention the middle one. So when Rebbe went ahead and he started, so Rebbe who compiled the Mishnah, he said he put this. He said Rabbi Lazar named Rabbi Yeshua bar Chananya, meaning Rebbe is the one that wrote it. So he said the name Rabbi Yeshua. He said the name Rabbi Lazar in the name of jumping over Rabbi Yeshua bar Mamel straight to Rabbi Yeshua. That's halacha. If I heard it from someone says he heard it from me, or heard it from Jules, heard it from Steve, he says he heard it from Baruch Tov, or heard it from Steve, and just skip over Jules. That's the halacha. Now, that's halacha. So now, Amr of Nachum Bar Yitzchak, another case of this ruling. I already learned Amr of Nachum Halavlar. Rav Nachum Halavlar said, so this, I don't know what he said, but he said the following, and he said, who did he attribute to? He said, I heard it from Rabbi Shaya, who heard it from Abba, who heard it from the peers, who are a group of Tanaim, who heard it from the prophets, who heard it from Halacha L'Moshe Misinai. Now, we say concerning you have mustard or another type of plant, dill, that let's say you plant it in 1 or 2 or 3 places. The halacha is when you go ahead and you start taking out the crop, you have to pay from each and every one. Anyway, the point is, he did not mention everyone else. There was plenty of other people in this chain. There was at least Yeshua and Kollel. Yeshua heard it directly from Moshe. He's part of the chain. We skip over Yeshua. We skip over Kollel. We learn from here that you could skip the middle part, and as long as you mention the beginning and the end, even though over here you mention a lot more than the beginning and the end, but that is the halacha. I think we're going to end here by the Mishnah on the bottom of 56b. Okay.
Wow.